But I think it's probably a good time to start the meeting. Doesn't look like anybody else is going to be joining. But I just kind of wanted to start this meeting off with a general, what we've been seeing in the Delta, but and also to talk about with the meetings with the scientists. And we met with UNC yesterday. So I'm going to start there with UNC. So yesterday, after some after about a week of them inputting their monitors in Discovery Bay and then also the Stockton port area, they finally got it up and running. They've got an intern that's going to be coming in and out, and we'll probably be using our office space to store things. It's going to be interesting to start to see the what do you call it, the air quality data that they are able to show, which are PM 2.5 and PM 10, which I'm sure most other of you guys are familiar with the air board and with the other types of things that go on with that monitoring data. But the interesting thing was that they found the spot. They were able to get it set up. They've got the maintenance down. But one of the things that was interesting in our conversation yesterday were if you guys are familiar with those bubblers down in like the Stockton port area, those little bubblers that are used to like input oxygen into the water. Haley from UNC, she's got a hypothesis that that's helping lead to HABs getting into the air with the constant mixing of the water into the air column. So no proof of that fully yet. It's just a theory, but it's an interesting concept together, especially with the known aspect of fountains causing airborne like water particles getting through the air quality. So I'm interested to see what their data shows, because as soon as they like grab from their filters and send out, I'm curious to see how much of these particles actually or these toxins can become particles in the air. So we'll stay tuned on that. Hopefully I've got more data, because obviously up until this point, we've just been talking about the water quality aspect of things. And now it's really interesting to see if we can tie it all together with the air board and the AB 617 communities. So that's been interesting. Also today, right before this meeting, it was like 10 a.m., met with a bunch of the scientists, like from the water board, from UNC was part of that too, but more from the ones that were set up over at the University of North Carolina. And we were just kind of, nothing crazy came up in topic today, but they are thinking about, at least in Discovery Bay, they're working on it. I'm sure we can find a way to get it into Stockton, treatments of the water so that the harmful algal blooms get killed, which is using hydrogen peroxide. Now, I'm not so sure the exact science behind that, but I know that they're going to attempt to block out an area in Discovery Bay, which should be a nice looking ground to see how effective it is. And if it works there, it's going to be another argument process to see if it works here. So essentially, we're trying to see how that works out. And that was probably the most interesting thing from our meeting today, aside from just talking about the data, which I'll go into in a little bit. But it's honestly kind of intriguing, because obviously as blooms start to pop up here, which, spoiler alert, they have, it becomes harder to mitigate, harder to manage, because the greatest ability to prevent HABs, or I mean, the way to mitigate HABs is to prevent them from happening in the first place. But once they're active, or once they're in the waterways, it becomes really tricky to fully eradicate, because of course the bloom can disappear, but the toxins can still be in the water, which is why it's such a big concern in the Stockton area as it is now. So I guess we'll see where that data goes, like I said before, and hopefully we could start working on some things. I know that some people from around Stockton have reached out about cleaning out the end of the Smith Canal at Yosemite Lake, which is right where American Legion Park is. So I'm going to be doing some reach out for that to see what that entails. So aside from that, if there are any questions about the meetings from UNC or scientist wise, yeah, Margot.
Hi, yeah, this is Margot. Two things. Did they talk about the downside of using peroxide in our waterways? And or is that so limited that it's a no downside? And the other thing was, I've already forgotten, so go with the first.
Well, at least for one of the things about the hydrogen peroxide, one thing was brought up by the fish biologist in our group, who's John Rosenfield from Baykeeper, one of our sister organizations. And what he said was that using that can affect fish eggs. It obviously, because hydrogen peroxide obviously is a chemical, and the chemicals, you always want to avoid putting chemicals into the environment as much as you can. Sometimes it's a lesser of two evils, like in this case, but it also was mentioned that the fortunate thing about hydrogen peroxide is it does dissipate really quickly. So that's kind of the hope in seeing that. And I guess we will see what happens in Discovery Bay and see if there's a cascading effect or otherwise. But that's kind of like the idea behind what's bad with it. Otherwise, it's kind of clearing the waterway and making it a lot more clear for the sun to get through. And did you have a follow-up there?
I do, I remembered.
Okay.
So if I recall correctly, Florida, which has a larger problem with HABs, did they have a solution to their issues? Or is peroxide one of their solutions?
I don't know too much about Florida. I want to assume that they've probably used hydrogen peroxide. I know that even using algicides, which are just basically quote unquote, they're like pesticides, but for algae specifically. I don't know the effects of those yet, but I will look into Florida a little bit more and see if I can maybe get a better answer to that the next meeting we have. Let's see for sure. But Stephanie, do you have a question?
Yeah, thanks. And this is Stephanie. I am curious, so going back to the research that UNC, so University of North Carolina, is doing, and just for context for all, Haley, a researcher from UNC, is looking to do some air monitoring around kind of as blooms pop up. And I think just by nature of the type of air monitoring they're doing, they're looking for particles and collecting them in filters. And I'm wondering, Spencer, if you know about just kind of the timeline for processing and analyzing the filters, and whether or not, are they doing like kind of intermittent testing and analyzing, or are they looking to kind of do all of the testing at the end of summer and that's when we see data?
So it looks, from what I gathered, because one of their interns were there, so they've got one person on the floor or boots on the ground here from Pleasanton. So they'll be coming in every single week to either both replace the filters and grab samples that'll get shipped off to Santa Cruz. Same thing that we're doing. So I want to assume they're going to be along the same timeline. I'll get more details because I'll be working closer with them as soon as the next few weeks start. But that's the plan, is to see. I think it's the plan that they'll get every week, or maybe even 2 weeks. I don't know the exact logistics yet. But Douglas, did you have a question?
Yes,
I can't hear
I'm
you.
more concerned. Are you guys going to do any research?
You're muted, Douglas.
Okay.
You're back.
Can you hear me now?
Wait, you guys can hear him? I
Okay,
can't.
thank you. I was just saying, I was more concerned about the Hyatt, where the water builds up those Hyatts. Yeah.
I'm hearing Douglas, Spencer, but is anyone else having issues hearing Douglas?
Okay, hold on, I'm gonna sign.
So I'm curious if for the water plants that are there in the water, that are floating.
Oh, floated plants. Okay.
I'm wondering how that will, or rather, where are they from? Those floating plants, where are they from?
So if you're not talking about blooms, floating plants can kind of vary from region to region. Oh, the blooms.
The blooms, yes,
The blooms. Oh, okay. So The blooms are kind of what you would call, like, they are kind of an invasive species. They essentially, they kind of worked their way in from the ocean all the way in, just basically from rising salinity changes to other types of aspects, which is like the nutrient buildup that come from irrigation, from farming, so like pesticides and things that run off. They get fueled by the nitrogen and phosphorus from that, as well as other point sources across the San Joaquin River. And essentially they outcompete everything else in the area, which is why they take up all of the surface area of the water, which covers it. And then they cover the surface of the water because that's where the most photosynthetic activity happens. So they get the most sunlight, and that's why they outperform everybody else, or every other plant for that matter. And that's why it's another issue, is it's competing for space in the environment, and they're winning. So, and of course the heat and helps too, because they only show up above 26 or 7 degrees or 25 degrees Celsius, which is about 80 degrees if we're looking at it in Fahrenheit.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. And Stephanie?
This is Stephanie, and your response about UNC's testing actually prompted another question in my mind. I know a little while ago we had wondered whether or not Haley would be able to kind of join and talk about her research. I'm wondering, I'm assuming that since this is a part of like an academic research endeavor, that potentially they're looking to collect data, analyze before they kind of release any results, but that it does sound like maybe that for a future meeting it would be possible to get Haley back and like potentially talk about. I know I've heard just like a little preview of it. It is very, very, very technical, but it is really interesting to hear kind of that perspective of understanding. It's like initial effort to understand the impacts of harmful algal blooms on air quality and potential impacts.
I'm glad you brought that up, because that was another topic from yesterday. I do intend to get her in on a meeting. Obviously today, I think she's still in California and they're still doing some sample setup, but I'll try to get her on in next month. But you mentioned that the report that she was mentioning, they're actually, I want to say within a week or two from actually getting published. So I'll be getting a link to that report, which I can obviously share with you guys, or she can when she comes around. Maybe we can get her to do some sort of a brief presentation. I'll reach out to her and see if we can make something work. But that data is coming, and obviously with the data they collect from this will be a separate report. But yeah, I'll definitely get that in the works, and I think she should be more than game. So we'll see. And if that's it for the questions, I'll move on to some of the data we've been seeing in the area, which has been kind of crazy. But let me just put a quick thing out. Up until this past week, we hadn't seen any harmful algal blooms, period, aside from the subsiding from what we saw in the American Legion Park. So it wasn't a separate bloom. It was just receding as the temperatures were kind of low, which was fortunate. But last week our office got broken into. So we didn't really get the sample last week because out of just a caution of safety. So we just wanted to make sure that we're, being safe. But since then, the office has been hopefully fixed. But nothing of ours was stolen, so we were able to still keep testing. But as of yesterday, and it was funny because I'm doing another presentation today with a different organization. And that presentation is already outdated, because up until this point I was saying there's no blooms. We haven't seen blooms at all, and it's just kind of weird. But last week, obviously, we were in 90s, high 90s to 100 the entire week, and like 80s at the late night and the early morning. So yesterday we went to the downtown port area. We went from McLeod Lake to Morelli Boat Launch to Mormon Slough, which is kind of all around that same stretch of the waterfront down Weber Point, if you know the area. And there was a really bad bloom covering the McLeod Lake. So that entire area was covered in electric green color. It was pretty nasty, but obviously that's going to go into the reporting, and I'm curious to see what we see tomorrow and the next day. But yeah, we're starting to see blooms, and it's beginning to look like they probably won't go away anytime soon. So that's kind of like the updates for our data currently. I know it's kind of short and sweet and to the point, but by this time next month, I'll probably have a little more of a robust data set and probably able to talk more numbers next week or next month. But as of right now, it's kind of just starting. So we'll see how worse it gets, and hopefully it's not that much worse. So especially with those bubblers, you know. But was there any questions on that?
This is Margot Spencer. So just out of curiosity, this has nothing to do with, so the bubblers downtown that are right there downtown, which is not McLeod Lake, right? That's the other wide part, right?
I mean, it's kind of the same. It's McLeod Lake goes right that stretch that goes to the waterfront.
So the bubblers are in McLeod Lake.
Yeah.
Wow. And still the scum was developing and then potentially being aerosolized, as the theory goes.
Yeah, which could be another concern in of itself. But DeGloria, did you want to say something?
Yes, this is Gloria. I just wanted to say that like we have pictures about it of it, and I can share a picture or just put it on the agenda for you to visualize it.
Yeah, no, I sadly I didn't get to take too many pictures yesterday with the gloves on, but
Yeah. Oh, I can put the picture in the agenda real
Feel
quick.
free
Okay,
to, you're welcome to share it too, Gloria, if
in the
you have
chat
it.
too.
Yeah.
Totally cool.
I think you should be
Oh.
welcome to share your screen if you have it up, or yeah, pop it into the agenda and I can share it with the group.
Okay.
Cool.
All right. It's right here.
Yeah, it's quite crazy. Yeah. that lime green to the shoreline, and you can see where the bubblers are preventing the blooms from staying, but obviously that mixing of the water column kind of makes things weird for sure. But this is what it looks like the entire stretch all the way down from what we were looking at. So it's just kind of everywhere now. So it's concerning to say the least.
Yeah. Help and help.
Yeah. But aside from that, the only other thing we're looking at right now is how obviously I'll be trying to notify Haley from UNC whenever I see blooms, which fortunately we were both there on the same day, so I didn't have to say it to her anyways. But they'll obviously take into account different factors. They're still kind of concerned about being close to the freeway, the crosstown. So we'll try to see if that data impacts their filters. But up until now, it's just going to be an interesting study to see, because it's kind of some of the first of its kind. And hopefully by the end of this, we can start having actual input or data sources to say, hey, this actually is a problem, you know, and this kind of working together to try to form a solution from both water and land and air. So it all ties together. It's not just one aspect of it all. It's hopefully it's something we can find a solution that covers all the bases, you know. And if there aren't any other questions, I've pretty much gone through everything that I was trying to get through for the most part. All right then. If there aren't any other questions, I think we can adjourn.
Oh, I think we're getting a question
Oh,
from Douglas.
Can you hear me?
for a second there, yeah. I think you're muted again.
Oh, Douglas, you're muted again.
Okay, I think you're good.
Okay. Gloria made a good observation when it comes to her presentation where the water was boiling. You notice that it's separated You know, that's how I seen it over there, and it bring that the awful smell. You know, when you breathe in and it bubble into the atmosphere. And I know that I was told before, and you know, I'm not that quite sure, but I want to get some clear clarification. Is that also the air when it comes to the atmosphere that it is a bad environment breathing it to the lung and things like that? I want to make sure that we try to cultivate all those, like you say, all the leachate of plant underwater that produce all that blooming and they call it hyatt plant, that it's like a vegetation in the water. Can we crop it? Because I just found out that on the Stockton, I remember the Stockton airport, not Stockton airport, the Stockton port said that the machine is broken. They cannot clean it out now. So I was wondering, are we able to have you as a scientist to allocate money so the state could give us some kind of machine or harvest those type of, because it's 110 right now. It could be 90, 100, but yeah, but yet it started at 80. That to me, that's like the pivotal point. Then it gets higher and higher, and it gets really, I don't know, really over, you know, planted, and a lot of them getting sprouting out a lot. So I just want to know how we can control that. That's all I'm trying to say. That's all. Thank you.
It's a good question, because obviously the thought process is, why can't we just scrape off the top and then say it's gone? But the truth is we never really know how many toxins are in the water, and that's our only telltale sign that there is possibility of a problem. So it's kind of like how when you add smell to gasoline to know that there's a leak. If the smell wasn't there, we wouldn't know it, you know? So I don't know about the fixing of the bubblers, but as of now, obviously that isn't proven. It's not a guarantee that that's causing issues or aerosolizing it, but I mean, one can lead to believe that, because even in that picture, you could see that the water was getting distressed and there's bubbles on the top of the surface. And when they pop, obviously there's got to be some sort of a water vapor that goes into the air. Now, who knows if it's carrying toxins yet, but I'm assuming that's what the air filters are going to grab at some point. And then we'll be able to see how bad the air toxins are. And then maybe we can start to find ways to fix the issue, because those bubblers were actually put in place in the first place to add more oxygen to the water, because when the blooms are done, or when this bloom season's over, they dry up the dissolved oxygen in the water. And the issue with that is that kills even the fish in the area. It helps to kill. I'm not saying it kills every fish, but it's a problem for both that and the plant life in the area, because with no oxygen in the water, there is no way for life to live in the water for the most part, or at least the lowering values of the water. So it's kind of a risk or tricky thing to work around, because obviously it's a mitigation factor for the life of in the area, but it's also maybe causing more issues with the HABs. So it's just like slippery slope. It's hard it's silver linings and everything. So I don't know exactly yet, but we'll see if there's anything we can do to fix that.
And I wondered if I could add to that, Douglas. I heard a question of whether or not, what we know about whether or not it's bad for you in the air. And I think kind of what this subcommittee is really convening to do is understand how, updates on the research of HABs, but really we know this field of understanding the impacts of harmful algal blooms on air quality is like so new, which is why we have involved different academic partners, because the research is really just starting on it. We had a couple, I don't know if you were in that meeting, Douglas, but we had a couple of meetings ago, someone from the State Water Board who came to talk to us about kind of policies and regulations and kind of the standard set. And really for air quality, there are no standards or any health-based, health-based standards to let us know about, what we want to meet, because we really don't know quite yet about the impacts harmful algal bloom has on air quality. Which is why we're really excited to have people like from the University of North Carolina to come talk to us about their research.
Okay.
Eric, did you have a question?
Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, could you like just explain like how the filter process works? Is it or where and where are where are they located?
They're located on one of the docks around the Stockton port area. I can't remember the exact one because I thought it was at a certain location, but I'm not sure anymore. The way that their filtering system works, the way I understand it, is the way they're going to collect data on a weekly basis is when they're switching out those filters. I don't know the exact specifics. I'm sorry if that's not helping right now,
Is it
but
underwater? An underwater filter? Or
I think the unit's above water.
okay.
It's a I can't remember the exact make of it, but it's like a jet engine type thing from what they were describing it as. But it's on top of the dock and plugged into something so that it can capture the air samples around the area, as much as I know.
And then it goes into the filter and then they take the filter and that's what they study? Or
Yeah, and then they'll scrape some of the samples off from that, from what I gather.
from the water.
From
So this
go
is
ahead,
Stephanie,
Steph.
and yeah, Eric, and Spencer, correct me if I'm wrong, but this is like air sampling that's happening in conjunction with so Restore the Delta is kind of doing a lot of water sampling, and this researcher from University of North Carolina is actually trying to do like sampling of the air quality. And so they have, and I believe they have, yeah, I wouldn't know the exact one, but we did hear some initial kind of research feedback from Haley, and they are sampling. I think they're sampling for PM 2.5, if I'm not mistaken.
They are
Yeah.
that and PM10. I think
And
there's
PM10,
12.
yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Are there any other questions?
Douglas, your hand is up, and I'm wondering if it's from earlier, if you have another question.
No, I do not.
No. Okay. All right then. I think now we can adjourn for sure. Yeah.
Sounds good. Thanks so much. And we'll kind of
Appreciate-
send out information about the next meeting, Spencer, whenever you have
Yeah.
a chance to send that over to us.
And I'll try to get Haley on to get her to give a little presentation on it all, and then she'll be able to answer a lot more about the filters because she's been working on a lot more. So I'll get her in the loop, and I'll try to get it set up pretty early. So it'll probably be next meeting. Will probably be towards the end of next month, anyways. So we'll get that worked out for sure. But thanks for everyone for coming out and asking questions, and I'm hoping this is helping everybody else with filling in the blanks for what we're doing here too. So
Thank you all. Take care.
Thank you.
you guys have a good one.
Thanks.
Have a happy and safe 4th if we don't see you
Yeah.
before then.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.